this is what's called the chain right here, and you're gonna end up taking that off. So, but you can actually do a lot of this stuff just by pulling it apart. And this is the actual fillet right here. See how I'm reaching down in here? It'll come to a tip
right
here. And then start. I mean, the idea is that you want to pull apart as much as you can without actually tearing the meat. Just so you don't have to freaking cut so much. What's called gristle would be this right here. This is, some people call it silver skin, some people call it sinew. But if this will not break down, it'll get. It's just nasty. It doesn't cook down at all. Even in the slow roast process, you could cook this meat well done, and the sinew would still be chewy. What we want to do first is slowly separate the chain. Just make sure when you're doing this, just do nice motions with the knife, and constantly be reading the meat. You know, you can see where the flesh here kind of comes down to this fatty layer. You want to separate it as best you can from that layer, just making single straight cuts, no sawing motions, don't do that. See how this cut right there is nice and even? You know, if you're sawing back and forth, you're moving out of that groove. It's bad. What you want a center cut, because again, you know, if you see this right here, I mean, that's not going to grill right. I mean, unless you butterfly it, which just means you pull this over and you slice the top of that. I'll show you that later. But you get, out of every loin, you get 2 or 3 good center cut fillets, and that's what you really want. Filet, believe it or not, is actually not the best cut of meat, simply because it doesn't have any fat, and fat is what is flavor. So
this is the best one? Something that's got fat marbled throughout it?
Yeah, like a New York strip or ribeye, a well-marbled ribeye, New York strip. Generally, meat connoisseurs will take both of those over filet mignon. Now, the silver skin is a pain in the ass, but if you know how to deal with it, it's actually pretty easy to get off. And what you do, this is just fat right here. And see, I'm just scraping it. I'm not actually cutting.
And there's a slight coloration difference between the silver skin and that fat?
Oh yeah, and the fat, you can feel it. I mean, it's a consistent, like the silver skin is, you know, like, I mean, you feel the fat. The fat, you can break apart. The silver skin, you won't be able to do that. Now what you do is you choose a part of the skin and you get your knife up under it like that and angle it so that your knife is just cutting up into it. See how I'm only getting a minimal amount of meat on that right there, and I'm not chopping up this right here. So you angle it up and then come back, and instead of cutting into the meat, you ride your knife blade along the silver skin. It comes right off. Nice. You want to get as much of this stuff off as possible. I mean, the real small stuff over here you don't have to worry about. But see how it's actually stringy here? I mean, that's what all of this is. And what I do on my hefty journalist salary is I just try to buy. I look for just cheap cuts of meat, and I look for ways that you can cook them tender. And what you're doing at this point is just cleaning up any fat parts. I mean, again, you don't want to take off any meat that you don't necessarily have to, but I mean, this is all filet meat. I find that that's pretty much about how thick you want it.
Is that like what, an inch and a half?
About an inch, maybe a little more than an inch. Okay. You just want to go as quick as
one
you
smooth
can.
thing.
Yeah. And then what you'll do is you take this like that, and I mean, you can, like, I mean,
so you could put a cut right through, almost all the way through, and then bend it back on itself?
That's what we're doing. This is probably about 8 ounces right there. And then
Can we?
So you make a nice even cut. So you know that way you can actually see where my knife stroke right there changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went up and then down and back one more time. So and what I always do is I always weigh it out. And generally, you know, if you bring a fillet down to like there, that's usually the how much you can actually feel it.
Now, how do you like
Fillet and this right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna take the chain off at this point. You know, but you can also get a nice prime fillet out of this as well. I mean, this takes a little more work just because it's a little fattier. But I mean, you see that you have just this. You have that sort of width right there that you can get another solid, you know, 8-ounce fillet at least.
So then, what is the appeal of filet mignon except for I guess like the location? It's not a worked meat really.
It's very tender. I mean, in that, you know, I mean, one of the biggest crimes in cooking is ordering a medium well or well done fillet, in my opinion. But
yes.
The fact is, you can order that. I mean, whereas if you order a New York strip medium well, it's going to be tough. A fillet will actually be pretty tender.
So it's a texture thing, is what you get out of this.
So we'll turn this into. Do you want one big fillet, or I could do?
Could we do that thing where I was talking about so cut it so that
you want me to butterfly it?
Well, yeah, we don't actually have to do that now, but like, can you cut it so that I could in the future put something in the middle and then like put like blue cheese or something in the middle? Yeah. It looks like you're doing the same steady, long.
Yep.
Trying to do as few cuts as possible.
Exactly. This is what's called butterflying, and you know, you get this. Let's do another one.
And you try to have a uniform thickness when you're doing this.
Yeah, and then what you do, I mean, you could do like I wouldn't have you pound it out, but once you get it in a uniform thickness, you just smear your topping over it, and then just roll it up like that, and then truss it, and so. And now, a lot of people just take this stuff and grind it up for burger because it's just replete with fat and sinew. When I was working for this one restaurant that was really cheap, and we were trying to get food costs as low as possible, we would actually break down the chain and turn them into petite fillets that we'd sell with chick lobsters, which are those under 1 pound lobsters. So just essentially taking this garbage meat. Well, it's not garbage, but you know, comparatively speaking, I mean, people would buy it and love it, and it always perplexed me. But so like here again, you know, if you look at it, I mean, it's as long as you got some knife skills, you can sort of pull back these. There's some meat on it. We'll leave it. I'm really cheap, so I freaking use everything. There's very little that goes in my trash can around here. And there might be a little fat in here,
That's fine.
but whatever. Here you go. Now you have. There's a little piece of sinew. There's probably another piece that I'm not going to be able to get to without
Hiding right underneath it.
Yeah, you can sort of see where it kind of tucks into the meat. Again, you know, this is not going to be a filet mignon. It's going to be scrap that you can turn into something somewhat decent. Well, actually, maybe I got it all. I'm gonna turn this into a petite fillet.
Oh.
See how you know easily that molds right there. I mean, here we had a couple minutes ago we had a freaking piece of garbage meat. Now it looks like a fillet.